What's up, Boobatubers? Sniffty Dugan here, once again, adding to the HOG Chapter series. Today, we're going to talk about the Director. Oh, there's a lot we can say about this character. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Let's talk about the HOG Chapter Director. As I mentioned in my previous video, the HOG manager really has the most say in what happens in the chapter, but I would say that most dealers allow the director to do most of the work and run the chapter as he really sees fit. Big decisions are run up the food chain to the HOG director, or the HOG manager rather. But for the most part, most dealers allow the director to run that chapter, and that's his job. His job is to interface with the dealer to make sure that maybe the dealer has some things that they want to mention at the next meeting. Maybe they have some deals going on just for the HOG chapters. Maybe they have a couple of events happening. They'll relay that to the director, and the director will relay that to the rest of the chapter membership. His big job is also to manage the meetings. The HOG chapter meetings. Our meetings are once a month, and he sets the agenda, or she, the director sets the agenda, what's happening. Our chapter allows all the officers to speak, and the director is the one that kind of manages the workflow there. The director is also responsible for making sure that all the other officers are actually doing what we need them to do. He's checking up on the safety officer, the head road captain, the other road captains potentially, the events coordinator, the treasurer, the secretary, that everybody is doing what we need them to do, as well as giving them the resources or trying to get them the resources to do their jobs, right? Again, this is all voluntary. Nobody's getting paid here. It's a voluntary job. So you have to have a little bit of time if you want to be the director. Now, I don't really know anybody who's lining up to be the director. It's a job that does require time. It requires a lot of patience. The best directors leave their egos at home because you're dealing with a lot of different people from all walks of life, and you really need to be an accepting kind of guy. So the director is that person that will also set the tone for the club. In my opinion, his job should be to make sure that there's no cliques. We all know there's cliques, and when you have 200-300 members, even 60 or 80 members, it doesn't matter. There's going to be some cliques, and the director really needs to keep that in check and remind everybody that if you have new members, welcome them, right? Open your arms, put your hand out, shake their hands, acknowledge them, get them on a couple of rides, let them be a part of the members. Bring them in is really what I'm trying to say. I've seen a lot of different clubs where the cliques rule the roost. The new people come in and they go to a meeting or 2, 3, and nobody talks to them. So, directors, you're watching this video, really take the time to relay to the rest of the officers and the rest of the membership that when new members walk in that door, when they show up to a meeting, shake their hand, introduce yourself, let them introduce themselves, make them feel comfortable so they'll actually turn out. Right? The more members, the better. The more resources we have, the more people we have. The HOG chapter, it's not just for riding sometimes. So it could, a lot of it's a social club. We know a lot of people, they're all walks of life. They do all kinds of things for a living. And when you become friends with all these people and friendly with these people, they're more likely to do you a favor. Maybe somebody's in contracting or construction and you need something done at your house. You're going to get a fair deal. You're going to get the job done right because that's your friend, right? So it pays to be nice to people. You just never know who walks through that door. And the director really sets that tone. He's the person that should be telling everybody, and he should be going out of his way to introduce himself to everybody, at least being accessible to the membership. Another big thing that they do is managing the chapter charter. So he's responsible for renewing that chapter charter, signing the paperwork, getting all of that situated for the dealer. That has to be renewed, I believe, every year. The tax filings need to get done. He's also, responsible for making sure that the treasurer is doing their job, that the finances are correct. It's not only the HOG manager and the dealer that want that. It really starts with the director, right? Managing that, helping manage the finances, what money goes in and out, what's allowed to be spent, what's not allowed to be spent. That's not only the HOG manager. The director has a lot to do with that as well. If we want to run an event, maybe take the club out for dinner one night, and maybe you got some excess cash in the club. As a gimme, maybe they'll run a barbecue, right? We'll have a barbecue for the membership. Buys the hot dogs and the burgers and the drinks and whatever, and you go to a park and you set up a barbecue. You rent a tent or whatever you're going to do. Maybe hire a band. It depends about the membership. We have a lot of members, so we do tend to have a lot of extra cash, so we could do some pretty cool events like that. So the director, that's his real main purpose, is to orchestrate what's happening in the club. Harley-Davidson really specifies that they do not want their directors or any other officers focusing the club on charity events. People join HOG chapters to ride first and foremost. Not a lot of people want to reach in their pocket every weekend and paying for lunch, paying for gas, and then paying for them and maybe their significant other to go on a poker run, $25 a head. And before you know it, it's it's a $100 day, and you could do that once in a while, but you really shouldn't focus the club on that. A lot of clubs go belly up. You lose a lot of members that way when it's not everybody's got that kind of cash. So, and not everybody wants to do that on their motorcycle. One of the guys said to me one time, he goes, I use my checkbook for charity, not my bike. And that's what Harley-Davidson really means when they say we don't want you to focus on charity events. Again, what we try to do is one or two big events at the dealer, and we do a poker run or whatever we're going to do, a charity event, and we blow it out, right? You try and get as many people there, as many other clubs in the area to support you, and you give a big fat check. One of the big things that we did was the Fallen 7 event. That was a couple of years ago up in New Hampshire. A bunch of Marines had gotten run over by a drunken Ukrainian or Russian landscaper, I think it was. I don't remember what the full story was, but basically he came around a turn and he crossed the yellow line and he wiped out seven bikes. He killed everybody. I think there was one or two survivors. That was it. Really, it's a painful story. Right, so one of the guys in our chapter felt really horrible about that, and he said, "Look, let's do something for the families because there's little kids involved, and there's housewives that all of a sudden became single moms, and maybe a couple thousand. We happened to donate $10,000 that day, which is really, really nice. But these kids need to go to school. Maybe some of their college dreams were just they disappeared." On that day. So we tried to do our best to help them out. They did get a lot of donations, and they were doing a lot of fundraising for them as well. And we wanted to do our part. That was just a horrible story for the motorcycle community. So when you do big events like that, it's all hands on deck, even the membership, whatever you can do. So, and the director's job is to help really coordinate that with the events coordinator. If you're doing big events like that, the director is the one that's going to call the local police department and maybe get a police escort and call all the local towns that you're going to be riding through and letting them know, hey, we can use a police escort from here to here. We've never run into problems where the police department says no to us. They're always willing to help, especially if you're doing fundraising and donating like that. Again, that's his job. He's the one that is communicating with all the outside parties and kind of lining that stuff up. The director's job is also to make sure that the club is managed according to the Harley-Davidson charter, right? Each club has their own charter, and the director's job is to make sure that we're abiding by all the rules. and letting officers and members know that, we can't do that. For instance, our club charter basically says no drinking and riding, and that's a pretty sane policy. Look, nobody can tell you what you can and can't do. So the way we get around that is look, if we're going to go to lunch one day, we're on a long ride and we stop for something to eat, and somebody wants a couple of beers, you can have those beers. But the club ride is over for you at that moment. You take all responsibility for yourself. You're not going to ride with the club back to the dealer or back home just because you pose a risk. So it's the director's job is really to make sure that everybody understands that, and you keep reiterating that fact. You can do what you want, but if you're going to ride with the club and the rest of the members, it's against the chapter rules to consume alcohol. The director's job is also to make sure that the release forms are signed. So every year you have to sign a release form with your membership to be a member of the any local HOG chapter. Right? Harley-Davidson Corporate requires us to sign release forms every year. And you can't do it online. There can't be electronic signatures. They want you to show up at the dealer, hand your $20 or whatever it is for your chapter in the local area, hand over your money and sign the waiver. You're basically saying, I'm taking responsibility for myself, and you're not going to hold Harley Corporate or the dealer responsible if there's an accident or something like that. So there's other forms. When you're on a ride, the director is the one that's basically saying, hey, we need to sign release forms on every ride for people that show up that are not chapter members. So they have to sign release forms as guests if they want to ride. Guests are welcome. Each member can bring about one guest, and look, you can bring a couple of guests if you want to. Maybe they're potential members, but they need to sign release forms every time they ride with the chapter. Some rides are closed, no guests. But most of the events and rides, you can bring at least one guest with you. But it's the director's job to make sure that those forms get filled out. Any younger kids, they have to have a release form as well, right? Parents assuming responsibility for the children on those rides. Again, Harley-Davidson is worried about their liability here, and the dealer as well. So the director's job is to make sure that is also being implemented, and that the road captains are making sure that there's sign-ins and they hand those sign-in sheets to the dealer or the director. The director is also the one that is responsible for relaying orders for chapter merchandise, t-shirts, hats, whatever we're going to get. The design, logo design, right? This is all stipulated in Harley-Davidson's bylaws on what we're allowed to use and what we're not allowed to use. The director has to make sure that all those rules that Harley-Davidson Corporate is basically handing down to the chapters, that all of that stuff is being met. The director's job is also to make sure that if there's any news, any training opportunities for the membership, all that information gets passed on, right? Again, his job is the information guy, passing all of that stuff to the club membership. And if there's problems with the membership, then he's passing those problems on to the dealer and the HOG manager, letting them know what he's facing and that he needs maybe some support in some areas or decisions by the HOG manager. How are we going to handle this? Maybe have a member that is putting people at risk, doesn't ride well, and right, there needs to be a decision made there that this person maybe needs to go through some more training before he rides with large groups. He's too new. If you're a new rider and you're interested in joining a HOG chapter, make sure you take your MSF course, hit the parking lots, do yourself a huge favor. There's a video I made about riding in a group. Watch that. I'll put the link up here. Practice before you get yourself on these giant rides. Sometimes we run 40, 50 deep. You should be very comfortable on your motorcycle before you start riding with a group, right? Personal opinion. Why put yourself at risk? Why put others at risk if you don't understand fully what to do? That's why I made that video anyway. Take a look. These are just a few of the responsibilities of the director. Those are the main topics are in this video. there's always more to do. As a director, you are also the peacemaker. So two people are bickering back and forth. They got a problem with each other. Hopefully the director steps in and has them settle it out. We don't need any drama, right? So, a good director makes sure that they stamp out drama before it gets out of hand. Also, if the club is, or if the dealer's running events on their own and they're asking for help, as an example, an upcoming event the dealer's having at St. Patty's Day, they're asking some of the club members to bring some corned beef. If you're a good cook and you want people to try your corned beef and cabbage, the dealer's paying for it. And, you cook up your best and you go down to the dealer and they have an event there. They're just trying to draw in foot traffic, obviously, but it's also a decent day out. And sometimes there's a ride to or ride after. Really depends on the director. Right, he's the one that's coordinating that for the dealer and the membership to help. And what better? The dealer gets free labor. We get some free food. Okay. And I'll finish this video with the one last note. There's nothing worse than a self-serving director. The director should be responsible that when you are given accolades, for example, the Fallen Seven, the motorcycle club that they were members of, the Fallen, the president came down to us to receive that check. They gave a plaque and they thanked the entire club. That plaque should have the club's name on it. It should not have the director's name on it. If you're a decent director, you will let them know that everything that is done with the club mentions the club as a whole and does not call out people. Even if those people are doing extraordinary amounts of work, nobody gets a plaque. The club gets a plaque. That's the only way that can work. I've seen that plaques come in people's names and then, of course, well, what about my name? I worked, all week on this event for you guys. I don't get a mention, right? You just leave that stuff out of it. Just, the plaque should have the chapter's name on it only, not the director, not the assistant director, not the guy leading the charge. Doesn't matter. This is selfless, voluntary work, right? The chapter gets accolades. That's it. You guys have any comments, any questions, post them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. That's Sniffty Dugan signing off.